Truth is making a comeback. America's Top Stories with Lisa K. Donner.
Democratic candidates for president are springing up like dandelions on the back 40. It feels like each new sunrise brings another presidential hopeful forward. This current field of candidates comes in a variety of flavors. Yes, sirree, it's an all-in sandwich ready to unleash its progressive firepower against Donald J. Trump. So, what's a diehard Dem to do? Hillary Clinton's former aide Jennifer Palmieri wondered aloud if, quote, Democratic voters are going to be shopping around or make a quick purchase, unquote. Palmieri told USA Today that she believes they're going to shop around. And quite a shopping trip it will be, with an estimated 30-plus Democrats who have expressed interest in becoming the 46th President of the United States. Joining me now is Liberty Nation's chief political columnist, Tim Donner. No relation, of course. Welcome to Truth is Making a Comeback, Tim.
Thanks, Lise. Good to be with you.
All right. Since the Dems are shopping away, let's head on down to the mall towards the Kona Coffee Bar and meet up with Hawaiian Congressman Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard is the first Hindu member of Congress. She's a 30-something, young, attractive, well-spoken, but an independent voice really within the Democratic Party, which has suddenly turned into a broadly pro-war party. Tulsi Gabbard is very much anti-war, opposes our presence in Syria, and that has put her at odds, amazingly, with most, or at least many, of her Democratic colleagues.
Yeah, that's interesting. We wrote an article this week about Tulsi Gabbard, and a lot of conservatives were dialing in on her, but it seemed like her own party wasn't so happy with her.
Well, that's mostly because she dares to think independently and dares to leave the reservation when she feels it's appropriate. She is the only truly independent voice in the Democrat Party, but she also does check many of the boxes. She's female, she's young, and she's articulate, and I think would make a good representation for the Democratic Party. I don't think it's so much a matter of whether she's in step with the party as to whether the party is in step with her. And apparently she's not in step with the party.
Now let's pop over to Urban Outfitters for former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Julian Castro. What do you make of Castro?
Well, again, other than the fact that he is not a woman, he checks all the boxes. He's young and he's Hispanic, and he toes the far left party line of the Democratic Party. He'll say all the right things. He's very handsome, appealing visually. As to whether he can separate himself from a field that's likely to include upwards of 24 candidates is very much up in the air.
I also think, Tim, that he may have a name recognition problem. I mean, how many people know the HUD secretary under Obama?
Well, I mean, he may get a perverse form of name recognition from those that might believe he's related to Fidel or Raul Castro, which, by the way, he is not.
Very good. All right, let's pop into Eagle Spirit Native American store, and guess who we're going to find there? Three guesses, the first two don't count. Pocahontas.
Well, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, or Focahontas, as she's affectionately called by so many to the right of center, is a candidate, it seems to me, whose time has probably come and gone. The time for her to have run might have been 2016. Let's be honest, she's embarrassed herself with the DNA test, the results of which prove that she's actually only half as much an Indian as the average American. There's questions about her likability, a la Hillary Clinton, though that's considered to be sexist to even consider whether someone is likable or not. I don't see Elizabeth Warren going very far, even though she will be well-funded and well-organized.
I agree, Tim. I think she will be well-funded, and she may have something that other candidates don't have, which is some backup from the DNC.
Well, I think it's going to be very hard for the Democratic Committee to put their finger on the scale like they did for Hillary Clinton in 2016, because it was thought that nobody would seriously challenge Hillary Clinton, much like Donald Trump in 2020. We really have a reversal of fortune here, where you have a single likely Republican candidate and a huge field of Democrats, like the Republican field in 2016. The difference is that the Republican field included a lot of heavyweights with long legislative or governing experience, people like Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz and Scott Walker, who had already made names for themselves. Most of these Democrats are not terribly well known to the American people.
Okay, here's one for you. Let's mosey on down the Mall of America to the Army-Navy shop, where we have retired Army Major, former Democratic State Senator, and failed West Virginia congressional candidate Richard Ojeda.
Well, people are saying, well, how can Beto O'Rourke of Texas run for president when he wasn't even able to win a seat in the Senate? And I would say that goes double, triple, quadruple for this candidate, who was unable to even win a congressional seat. So a failed candidate for the House, just by virtue of the fact that they couldn't even attain a House seat, probably would be on the outer fringes of a Democratic primary. I don't see any way for Mr. Ojeda to get traction.
Well, plus he's got the same problem as Castro, maybe even worse: name recognition or the lack thereof. Let's face it, Donald Trump, he had one thing going for him in a field of 16, or was it 17 candidates, and that was name recognition. So it counts for something.
Indeed.
With all the shopping, one can get hungry, so it's probably time to bring up Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who made her first campaign stop at the Country View Diner in Troy, New York. Tim, what can you tell us about Gillibrand?
Well, she's obviously proven, Lisa, that she's a woman of the people with her first stop at a diner. I'll say this: if I was a progressive, which I certainly am not, I would not trust her, because she was an inconsequential backbench senator who basically got into office by virtue of Hillary Clinton handing her the New York Senate seat that she vacated in order to become Secretary of State. And Kirsten Gillibrand then immediately threw the Clintons under the bus, once it was safe to do so, by saying that Bill Clinton probably should have resigned in the 1990s. She's suddenly woke when she never was before. So if I was a progressive, I wouldn't trust Kirsten Gillibrand as far as I could throw her.
You know, I agree, Tim. She does seem to have a bit of that John Kerry flip-flop disease.
Yes, she does. And I think that's going to be very much exposed in a large field. It will be easy, I think, for the many other Democratic candidates to marginalize her as someone who, well, maybe she'll be marginalized as a Hillary Clinton without the charm.
Yeah, well, we can't talk about her likability now. Finally, somewhere in the mall, who is lost because no one knows who he is, we run into Representative John Delaney. Very few people outside of Maryland even have heard of Delaney. So again, we have a name recognition issue and an uphill battle for him, don't you think, Tim?
I think he has already received all the publicity that he's going to receive, because he's an obscure individual, an obscure backbench member of Congress with no legislative record to speak of. And I would suspect that he'll be in and out of this race very quickly. But his entrance and the entrance of Mr. Ojeda, who lost a congressional seat in West Virginia, shows that there's an awful lot of Democrats who are just chomping at the bit to take a shot at President Trump, and at least 30 of them who believe that they're the guy or they're the gal who can take down this vile president.
All right, Tim, we're going to have to, if we're taking odds and the field widens, now there are the only ones that officially announced. There are a number of folks who are looking like they will run, including Kamala Harris of California, Cory Booker of New Jersey, and of course Bernie, the 79-year-old independent from Vermont. We'll have complete coverage of the Democratic field on LibertyNation.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa.
Truth is making a comeback. Visit us at LibertyNation.com.